There will be spoilers ahead. Lots of spoilers, so be careful, won't you?
Okay, so we're doing this series still called Constipation. No, crap, sorry. Conspiracy. Yeah. And we watched this movie, This Old Dog, which I have totally watched and researched and have all sorts of stuff to talk about. Why would you think I don't? So, this movie, it's about... Oh, hey, did you guys know that Bumpy is actually a Serbian national? And he's... Wait. He's in this country to foment rebellion among America's dairy farmers? No, right? It's true. I saw it on OAN. Serbia is trying to take over the international cheddar market, and I think that's the issue we need to discuss, not some silly movie about dogs. Yeah. No one is buying any of this, are they?
I'll take 2.
Seriously, okay, fine. We'll talk about 1997's Barry Levinson movie, Wag the Dog, a completely fictional conspiracy movie. At least I'm pretty sure it's fictional.
Probably.
I'm your host, Senator Max Levine of the great state of East Dakota. And over there is your other host, former Soviet 35-star General Mike Lusky. Tell them all about your plot to control world bathroom grout prices, comrade.
You will not understand the triple prices of gratum grat auto. No, we're not doing that either. There's no dogs in this movie.
But there is in the title, so shush.
Didn't watch it, did you?
Anyway, poll question. Much more important.
Poll question.
Here we are from last week. Is there a movie you think is really good, except for that one critical, important, miscast role? Tyler Stewart tells us John Carter of Mars. Apparently he didn't like Mr. Carter.
I thought you didn't like Mars.
I just did not like the eponymous character. Ooh, look at Mr. Big Word.
Now, be nice.
Right.
We like their answers.
Yes, we do. Just show off. That's like more than 2 syllables.
Hey, I only know that's what that word means because they might be giant. No. REM had an album called Eponymous. What does that mean? It means the name of the thing is the same as the name of the thing.
I used to think it was one of those big animals, lived in rivers, big jaws.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Part of that was a number of bad choices by the scriptwriter. Oh, yeah. But the actor was a dud. Yeah, you are not wrong. Adam Mark says, my best friend's wedding. I hope he means the movie, otherwise his best friend's going to be very upset. Julia Roberts was too big a name to be plunked down into what was supposed to be a good ensemble comedy. In my view, she's the villain, but gets a hero's edit. That's interesting.
Huh.
She's just too big a name and too big of hair. Also true to fit into that cast. It's not supposed to be Pretty Woman, and yet her presence cannot help but make it all about her. Huh. That's interesting.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah. Nick Hoffman says Dracula. The Coppola version.
Oh.
You mean Bram Stoker's Dracula?
Whoa.
I was seriously excited to see someone do a fairly authentic version of the story. Okay. Winona Ryder and Keanu just ruined it. Huh. Keanu I would have thought of. I hadn't thought about Winona.
Yeah.
Yeah. From Dave. Our resident intellectual, he, of course, is raising the level of discourse here.
Oh.
Obviously, Shemp was a mistake. Curly, a genius. I would hate to call Shemp the biggest casting mistake of the 20th century, but it's a possibility. Except it may be that Curly replaced Shemp after the Stooges had achieved success. That is, in fact, what happened. Shemp was there first.
Oh, parents, don't let your children Shemp.
Ultimately, if the script is good enough, the cast is unlikely to ruin it. Ooh, I don't know if I agree with that, but it's an interesting point.
Thank you,
And
Dave.
a good point about Shemp. Benjamin Carl says, Richard Harris in Gladiator. Oh, wow. One of the major actors in there.
Yeah.
He's a brilliant actor, but too theatrical, alongside a cast of others acting for film.
Huh.
Like Oliver Platt?
Ooh.
Or Oliver... No, it was an Oliver Platt. It was an Oliver.
Don't remember.
This makes it quite distracting anytime he's on screen.
Okay.
Brad Pitt runs into a similar problem in Troy, where he's unduly beautiful, son of a god or not, and plays past his castmates to the camera alone. Oh. That is when he's not sighting down his short sword like it's a rifle. Yeah, okay. I'll give you that one.
You don't aim a sword?
Not that way, no.
Oh.
Valerie, I share some DNA with one of the hosts, Coons, says, you mean besides Kevin Costner in just about every movie he's ever been in? I did like him in No Way Out, but that's about it. This is one of those questions that I know I've groaned at more than one awful casting choice, but they're not coming to me at the moment. I might get roasted for this one, and I do still enjoy the movie, but I've always thought Bing Crosby in White Christmas was a bad choice. Wow, you're going out there on a limb there, Val.
I don't know the movie well enough, but I wonder who you'd pick.
I know he was in Holiday Inn. I know he was a big singer at the time and all, but he was so much older than Rosemary Clooney, 25 years.
Oh.
And their kiss in the bar was the most awkward, clumsy kiss I've ever seen. I cringe every time I see it. Okay, that's fair. Wow. Gary, get me the belt.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah. From way up north there and where the snows blow year-round, Vince, or Snowy.
As he is never called by anyone.
Nope. Right. We have another one here for Dracula. Keanu Reeves was so miscast in Bram Stoker's Dracula, extra bumpy bucks for using the full title. He just ruins the little bit of fun I could take from that film. In a similar vampire vein, I see what you did there, the film version of Interview with the Vampire, Brad Pitt is just awful. The whole movie is miscast except for Kirsten Dunst, who is amazing. But Pitt is usually better and seems a good fit when he was cast. The TV series so far is awesome, by the way. Interesting. Okay, well, Mike, what about you? What miscasting ruins a otherwise good movie for you?
I mean, the main reason I asked that question was because last week's film, Jiffed, I just really thought that Kevin Costner was not the person to put in that role, especially when Gary Oldman is right there. Now, that being said, Kevin Costner would have made a terrible Lee Harvey Oswald, but I would rather have seen Gary Oldman in that role. There's probably other things that come to mind, but that particular film was what got me to think about the question in the first place. So I'll just stick with Kevin Costner.
Fair enough.
And like Val, kind of in a lot of things. I just think he's dull. How about you? This was your question. No, it wasn't.
No,
it was mine.
Your question. I just read it. Yeah. For me, I'd have to say Ted Neely in Jesus Christ Superstar. Sorry.
I mean, the nasty Christ?
Yeah, the whiny Christ. I mean, not one of you understands.
Yeah.
Emo Christ, except more annoying.
Yeah.
I liked a lot of the other people in there. Just, he bothers me.
Yeah, I can understand that. Also, I don't know him from anything. I don't know him from anything else. So,
yeah.
So that was great. We love your answers.
Thank you so much. Very cool.
But
very well
what are they
out.
answering next week?
Next week, what low-budget or small-scale movie do you think would have been absolutely ruined if it had been given a blockbuster budget?
Oh.
Yeah. And we'll tell you how to answer that question after the show. Or will we?
Plan 9 comes to mind.
I would have loved to see Plan 9 with like a $60 million budget.
I know.
It would have been hilarious.
No. Well, Ed would have spent $50,000 in the movie and just took the rest of the money home.
Yeah, probably.
But
now we come to trivia.
The facts.
Budget. $15 million.
Oh, 15?
15, 1-5. There's a reason for that, partly. Both Dustin Hoffman and Robert De Niro took no upfront money.
Oh.
They just got points.
Oh, and did that work out?
Well, the global take was $64 million.
So that's probably
technically a success.
Depending how many points they got.
I don't know. But if it's Dustin Hoffman and it's Robert De Niro, you give them what they damn well want.
What's the point spread between De Niro and Hoffman?
Well, it depends. If you go with the Greek script, sorry, that's something else. It was nominated for 2 Oscars, didn't win either.
Oh.
Best Actor for Dustin Hoffman and Best Adapted Screenplay.
Not for De Niro.
Not for De Niro. He was not nominated.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Yeah, so he, beat 7 Kinds of Hell out of Dustin after the ceremony. And
you kind of want to, don't you?
You kind of do. I don't know why. There's just something very punchable about Dustin Hoffman. This was adapted from the book American Hero by a guy who wrote the screenplay, Larry Beinhardt. who we all know from Larry Beinhart world. One of the other writers for this, a co-writer, is friggin' David Mamet.
Oh.
The Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright, probably best known for Glengarry Glen Ross.
Oh, that's the closers.
Coffee is for closers, yes.
Yeah.
ABC, always be closing. Yeah. David friggin' Mamet wrote part of this.
Huh.
That whole "Why change horses midstream" slogan,
God.
that was a campaign slogan for Abraham Lincoln during the Civil War. Yeah.
Well, that didn't work.
Now, the timing of this film's release is interesting and totally, unless you think about it carefully, arbitrary. But a year after the film, this film was released in 97, in 98, President Bill Clinton became involved in a sex scandal with Monica Lewinsky.
I think the big scandal was, wait, somebody would want to do that with him?
Yeah, I'm sure nobody remembers that. It didn't get a lot of press.
No.
Real-life events kind of mirrored the plot because a lot of people, in August of 98, Clinton ordered the bombing of al-Qaeda targets in the Middle East right after he testified and just before Lewinsky was set to testify about the scandal. And later, in December, his administration led a bombing raid in Iraq right before the U.S. House of Representatives was set to vote on his impeachment due to the Lewinsky scandal. Didn't help.
So basically it was like, did you, Mr. President, engage in any kind of sexual activity? Over there!
A lot of political commentators and critics referenced this movie using the term "Wag the Dog" to describe these events. The interest in the movie spiked around then.
Is that now a euphemism for what they supposedly did together?
No, no.
Well, you want to go wag the dog, if you know what I mean?
The quote, "A good plan today is better than a perfect plan tomorrow," that Connie Breen, DeNiro says, that's a real quote from General George Patton. Yeah. During the filming of this movie, Barry Levinson, the director, Dustin Hoffman, and De Niro had an impromptu, coincidental meeting at Washington, D.C. hotel with Bill Clinton. And Clinton asked De Niro, "So what's this movie about?" And De Niro looked at Levinson, hoping he'd answer, and Levinson looks over at Hoffman, hoping he'd answer, and Hoffman, realizing there was no one else to pass the buck, is quoted as saying, "So I just started to tap dance. I can't even remember what I said." Yeah.
Wow. Let's
awkward.
For the improvisers there.
The talk show number that we see at the very end of the film, 1-800-555-0199, is used in a lot of different movies and TV shows. This number is actually, I did not know this, this number is reserved by the phone company to be used as a fake 800 number for the media. They've set it aside. That's why you hear it so often.
Oh, nice.
This entire movie was filmed in 28 days.
Wow.
During a gap in the production of Levinson's other movie, Sphere. Which we all
remember Sphere is not balloon.
Yeah, that was the famous tag. Yeah, Sphere, which was supposed to be his big sci-fi hit. And I think, did you see it?
Until you just mentioned it, I had never heard of it.
I saw it, so there was one.
So you're the guy.
I'm pretty much it.
Sphere, huh?
Yeah, Sphere.
Yeah, that's a compelling title.
Dustin Hoffman, who plays Stanley Moss, by the way, Stanley Moss's name is spelled M-O-T-S-S, but the T is silent. I don't know why that matters, but it's in the script. Based his mannerisms and his delivery both on his father and I found this out, I couldn't not see it, on real-life producer Robert Evans.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's the glasses.
The Gil Evans Divers Watch guy?
Yeah. And, by the way, if you ever see the documentary, The Kid Stays in the Picture, it's fascinating. Evans is a figure. He is just a legend in Hollywood. I don't know if he's any good, but...
I understand he likes Coca-Cola.
Yeah. By the way, the meaning of the phrase "wag the dog" is, quote, when something of secondary importance improperly takes on the role of something of primary importance. And yes, it predates the movie. They didn't make it up, although a lot of people think they did.
See, they should have called the movie that.
Yeah. I think that wouldn't have fit on the marquee.
Well, Incredibly Strange Creatures Who Stopped Living Became Mixed Up Zombies, that was a big hit because of its title.
You think that fit? Anybody put the whole title on a marquee?
I don't think it was ever on a marquee at all.
True. The fictional Special Operations Unit created in the movie is called the 303, the Fighting 303. This is a little obscure. David Mamet had a TV series called The Unit, and that was the that was the designation for the group, the 303rd Logistical Studies Group from that show.
I see.
Also, 303 is an old rifle caliber.
I see.
The Lee Enfield 303 rifle.
I see.
Yes. And last thing, when Wag the Dog was being filmed, the StarTAC cell phone had just come on the market. This is the first time it's ever used on camera. And it was used all through the 90s. The StarTAC was one of the first real flip phones. It was an analog flip phone, and the design was based on the Star Trek communicator.
I loved watching StarTAC when I was a kid. Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah, StarTAC The Next Generation was good, too. But...
Captain Crick.
Yep.
Mr. Spack.
Mr. Spork.
All those memories.
But there's other stuff, but that's most of the interesting stuff.
Ooh. I hope there's a story.
Ooh. And now, the plot. It's 2 weeks before a presidential election, and the incumbent has just been hit with a sex scandal involving a teenage girl. How can his team fix this? That's the question put to Conrad Breen, a.k.a. Mr. Fixit, played by Robert DeNiro. Breen figures out what they need is a distraction, and what could be big enough to distract from a sex scandal? A war! But not a real war, because if it was a big war, someone could get hurt. So Breen enlists the help of ace Hollywood producer Stanley Moss, played by Dustin Hoffman, with the following proposition. Produce a phony war, the appearance of a war, a pageant, if you will, with Albania. Why Albania? Why not? Moss and his team of Hollywood hucksters leap into action, creating fake war footage, fake intelligence reports, fake spontaneous public gestures, and even a fake war hero. Though unexpected events complicate things, Moss remains undaunted and pulls off the production of his career, catapulting the president's approval ratings into record numbers. Moss is able to handle everything, except in the end, his own colossal ego.
The film.
Good thing they picked Dustin Hoffman for that, huh?
Yeah, talk about it. Well, yeah, it was obviously a real stretch to play an egomaniac for him.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, the only thing I really know about Dustin Hoffman as a person is that he is one of those method actors taken to an extreme.
Yeah.
And that he's very serious about his craft. I honestly know nothing about him as a person.
No, he's very talented, although he does tend to rely on some gimmicks a lot of the time.
Such as?
Tootsie, he relies on being in drag. Rain Man, he relies on being autistic. Midnight Cowboy, he relies a lot on Ratso Rizzo's physical disabilities.
Yeah, The Graduate, he relies on being young.
Yeah, it's pretty embarrassing.
That doesn't work. Yeah.
In Mr. Megorium's Magical Emporium.
God, no! Let's go back to Sphere. Sphere. You know, it's a movie I never got around to, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, one thing, too, before we forget, in case you're wondering what's going on, Max and I are for one of those rare occurrences in the same room.
Yes, we are.
So if we sound a little strange, it's because we're in
the same room. Yeah. One thing I did want to point out, one of the other characters, Winifred Ames, played by Anne Heche.
That's who that was.
Sorry, I was doing the space saucer language she used to speak in. That character was originally written to be a man.
I'm really glad it wasn't, because one of my notes was I was glad to see that there are actually women on the staff of the Movers and Shakers.
Oh, yeah.
And they're a little dismissive of her, but not a lot dismissive, which, you know, one point for the team. But she's actually obviously really capable and smart.
Yeah, but she's also clearly lower down the command chain. That's why they don't always pay attention to her. And she does, I like her performance as that just sort of... She's right there.
Yeah.
Right, you just feel she is wound so tight that she could just... And she does sort of go off on them briefly, but even that just is... That passes over.
She's so tight that, pardon my French, well, you know where we're going.
Yeah.
No, I like that she was portrayed as very... To be fair, everybody is a rung below De Niro's character.
Yeah.
Everybody. Even Dustin Hoffman... there's points where he's like, oh, no, I can take care of this. But you don't see what's coming. You can take care of the problem once it shows up, but De Niro knows what's coming.
The thing, De Niro's character, I'm sorry he didn't get nominated. I understand why, because his performance, especially for Robert De Niro, is incredibly subdued.
Yeah.
It's very calm. He's got this sort of likable, I'm just some guy, with this quiet undertone of, I could wipe out your entire family and no one would ever know. Just want you to keep that in mind.
Quite honestly, the way that he appears on talk shows.
A little bit. Well, there it's more like, I could rip your entire family's heads off in front of you. This guy is just someone who, could make you disappear.
Yeah. Yeah,
Conrad is frightening, and he's not supposed. He comes across as very jovial and very, amiable. Never loses his temper. Never raises his voice. That makes him the scariest guy in this movie.
Yeah, and get this out of the way. This film is ostensibly a comedy.
It's a black comedy, but
it is very dark in places.
Yeah.
And the places where it is darkest is when it's, let's see how to put this best, most realistic.
Yeah.
Where you can get to really behind the idea of it being a possibility. It's a possibility.
Yeah, this one. Wow. now I have. Excuse me. We're going to be putting this on pause while I beat Mike savagely with a bag of oranges.
What else is new?
Yeah.
But we do have a couple of surprise peoples in here. They're listing the credits, and so and so and so and so, and Willie Nelson as the Beaver.
Yeah, Willie Nelson is in this playing. I think his name's John.
It's Willie Nelson.
He's playing Willie Nelson, and I gotta say he's really fun.
You can tell now. Willie Nelson has a reputation for
he smokes
having a bit of the weedly.
Yep.
And you get the impression that the character he's playing smokes a lot of the weedly deedly.
Well, he's more. They make a thing more of a. I was just going to go get drunk. That's an actual line.
Yeah,
but yeah, I'm sure.
And there's some songs that he, I guess, writes. Yeah. I honestly don't know who wrote them. There's two in particular. There's one that is not one they'd plan to use for any of the campaigns, and it is hilarious.
Oh.
And there's another one that ends up being the We Are the World song, which is really what it is. And it is...
he didn't write that. Do you know who wrote that?
No.
Huey Lewis. Huey Lewis wrote a bunch of the songs in this movie.
Okay.
Yeah. At the final song over the title credits, there is a song, Wag the Dog. Did you recognize the voice?
No. Oh, yeah, because he did the whole soundtrack. It's Mark Knopfler.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and I was like, now, and here's a part, in a couple of points I thought that the soundtrack was like, I don't know if this is appropriate, but it's Mark Knopfler.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, it's amazing.
He's really cool. But yeah, there's a couple of points where Willie Nelson's character, Willie Nelson actually is obviously having a decent time. They don't ask him to act too much, which is good, because let's face it, Willie Nelson's
He's not an actor. Yeah.
But he's fun. His little impromptu song, I was dying. I can't remember any of the lines from it, but he's trying to write this song about Albania. And he's like, Albania. Oh, and then that rhymes. We'll stick with that.
That's like he objects to the plan because Albania is really hard to rhyme.
Well, and they only pick Albania because nobody knows anything about it, right?
And I like the thing where they say, Jim Belushi, he's Albanian. And I looked this up. Yes, he is.
Is he really?
The Belushi family, both Jim and John, their parents were Albanian immigrants.
Okay.
And they have him speaking Albanian at one point to the Albanian quote-unquote terrorists.
Because quite honestly, that's the only reason I can see for bringing Jim Belushi
that was
anything. Because when you want a quality endorsement, you got a Jim Belushi.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. You go to John's brother Belushi.
Yeah, so the acting in this film is all ranging from very solid to, in some cases, I'd say inspired. I think that, De Niro... It rarely does badly. I have seen some bad De Niro performances. What was it?
Stardust.
Stardust.
Where he's Captain Shakespeare.
You're like, oh, you've never met a gay person, have you?
Yeah.
Okay. It turns out, oh, yes, he has. His dad's gay.
Oh, okay.
Was gay, yeah. But De Niro, he always will give you a certain level of quality. I want to say I don't think this is Dustin Hoffman's best role ever. I think he does really well.
I think he does a good job. It's not his best, but his role is much more the comic role. He's supposed to be funny, and he is. Yeah. He's very funny, and he's very Robert Evans. I'm just...
Yeah, well, I'll have to see that movie sometime.
Yeah.
We have some I thought that we had some very distinct echoes in this film back to a film that was earlier in this series. See our entire episode on Capricorn 1, which was all about the idea of staging something totally fake. And, of course, that didn't happen.
No.
We'll get to the talking questions in a bit.
This, to me, also is reminiscent of a historical event, or at least a historical myth, and that's the Spanish-American War.
Oh, right. Yeah.
There is a famous myth, by the way, most historians agree this is not true.
Oh.
That William Randolph Hearst is sort of credited with whipping up the Spanish-American War. He didn't. He did whip up public opinion against Spain and in favor of the war, because there's that famous quote that probably did happen when he sent his photographer down to take pictures. The guy's saying, "Mr. Hearst, there's no war here." He said, "You furnish the pictures, I'll provide the war."
Yeah. Well, and they think that they even determined that the explosion was accidental. Like, there was never any evidence that it was actually any kind of terrorist or anything. Yeah. I haven't looked at that into it. I remember seeing something about it.
Sure.
I also have to say, if you're going to do anything in this film, you're going to vote for Coach, because that's who plays the other candidate.
Craig T. Nelson, uncredited, it plays the guy running against the president, who, by the way, not only do we never see his face, he doesn't get a name. He's just, in the credits, in fact, he is president. Not the president, president.
And they do this on purpose, and my guess is that one of two things. Either it's so that it can relate to any president.
I think that's the idea.
Or so you don't have to worry about anybody suing anybody about it making supposedly, a particular president. I personally found that made the movie a bit weaker.
I liked it. I liked the fact that you could plug it, because you could plug just about any president in there.
Yeah, but to me now we don't even have a character. We have literally the back of a head, which.
But he's not the focus. That part of the sort of message here is the president doesn't matter. The president is an image. The president, in effect, is a pageant himself. He's a product. And they're figuring out the best way to advertise him. And who he is doesn't matter.
I suppose that I can see that. I think my feeling, though, is that you don't have to worry about them dealing with somebody that's hard to work with or easy to work with. We don't see that aspect. All we have to deal with the fact is that he had sex with
he did something inappropriate with a teenager,
Well, it suggested he had sex with her.
Yeah. Thought it was made something inappropriate, because it was only like 2 or 3 minutes.
Sexual conduct, but it seemed to
with
suggest,
a firefly girl,
which
not a campfire girl, a firefly girl.
I'm Rita Moreno. No, you're not. I always thought I didn't know who Rita Moreno was. I always thought it was the girl at the end. It's like, really, that's a deep voice for a young girl, but okay, sure. Yeah, I don't know. I thought not having an actual president made it a little weaker. It's not about him, but because they go out of their way to not show him, I'm like,
Okay, I can see that, but agree to disagree there.
Yeah.
One of the things I really like, there were just these little touches, like when Breen wants to demonstrate to Moss, because Moss, he's explaining this, and he says, "You want me to produce your war?"
Yeah.
And he's trying to explain that this is serious, and he actually does have this level of access. And the way he does it is they're watching the press secretary give a briefing, and Barry DeNiro opens his phone and says, "What do you want him to say?" And Moss looks at him and goes, "All right," he says, "Our thoughts and prayers are with the president." And he says something into the phone, and the secretary parrots it.
Yeah.
And Hoffman just looks at him and like, okay, this just got real.
Yeah, I just wish there had been somebody on the team, the movers and shakers team, that when they brought up the idea of the war, just would step forward and actually say, "Don't have a war!"
Yeah, I think that was hoping for too much.
If only we had had the voice of Yoko Ono.
If only. It is something, and it's both depressing and utterly believable. No one at any point who is working on this fake war ever says, "Do you think we're doing something wrong?"
No.
Nobody.
No.
It doesn't even occur to them.
I think that very much paints the characters in the light we're meant to see them, which is... And here's the scary part. De Niro is brought in as a consultant of sorts. He has no rank. As far as we can tell, he has no political position. But they call him, and once he's called in, he pulls the strings for everything.
No one says no to him.
No.
And there's a running sort of gag where people keep saying, "Connie, what is it exactly you do for the president?" And he never answers. He doesn't lie. He just ignores the question every time.
Yeah. But I would say that the things that he comes up with in the movie to do, if not directly are echoed in real life, they sure feel like they kind of were. God, like, there's one in particular that this felt like, and it was actually way earlier than this film. Did this remind you of what they're trying to do, remind you of any particular president in any particular situation?
Well, I was thinking of Bush and the first Iraq War.
Earlier than that. I was thinking of Carter and Reagan, because Carter admittedly was not a great president, and some people would say he was a mediocre to bad president. But during his tenure, we got the whole Iran hostages thing.
Yeah.
And if you remember, at least this is the way I remember it, is that Reagan, one of the things he was talking about was getting our boys home. And right after he was elected, they were. And so it kind of feels like this. Like in this case, they're making a war hero. We have to bring, what the hell was the kid's name? Old Shoe.
In the movie? Oh, yeah. Schumann, Old Shoe, yeah.
It's something Schumann. Willie Schumann.
Willie Schumann, yeah.
No. I'm going to bring him home. If I'm reelected, I'm going to bring Willie Schumann home, who at the time they didn't even know what he looked like.
Yeah.
They're just like, we need to find somebody whose name has shoe in it.
Yeah, basically, and this is where one of the fun parts of this movie is things keep sort of slipping out of their control, and then they readjust.
Yeah.
Like at one point, the CIA busts Connie and Winifred and says, "There's no war. We know there's no war. You're making this up." And by sheer force of personality and argument, Connie gets the CIA on his side.
He gaslights them.
He completely gaslights them.
How do you know?
No.
How do you know?
And over and over. And the whole thing. And if there isn't a war, what good are you?
Yeah.
What good are you and your spy satellites? What good are you and your intel gathering? Because it's not going to be a two-ocean war anymore. It's going to be small group of people. And what are you going to do if your intel is telling you this? And William H. Macy, who was the CIA, totally bamboozled. Although he then, apparently, the CIA makes a deal with the president's opponent, and they announce that the war's over.
Yep.
It's not like we're announcing it's a fake war. It's like, no, it's real, but it's done.
Yeah.
And like, crap, it's too early, because they've got to keep this going until the election to distract from the sex scandal. But, of course, Moss, being the master producer, goes, okay, they left someone behind. There's a prisoner of war. There's Willie Schumann. We got to, with some guy, Old Shoe, they come up with this whole thing.
Well, Willie Nelson writes and records a song with this old blues man that they then fake a record and put it in the National Archives. Yep. They're like, hey, do you remember that song, Old Shoe? This reminds me of that. And now they have people throwing shoes up into trees, like tying a yellow ribbon.
Yes.
They work merchandising into it.
Yep. I love when they're brainstorming. Yeah. When the whole sequence, when Moss and his team, which includes Susie Plaskin, who's fine, she's great. She was the tall woman, best known probably as Ambassador Kalar from Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Okay.
Yeah, she'd done a lot of TV work. Along with the Fad King, that's his whole name, which is Dennis Leary.
Yeah, I gotta jump in real quick.
Yep.
Dennis Leary, I think, is very underused as an actor.
Yeah.
I like him in this. I really like him in the Thomas Crown Affair. And yeah, he's funny. He's a stand-up comedian at first, but I think he's actually an underrated actor.
I think so. He has a lot of energy. He's not great at subtle, but he's really good at that manic kind of bouncing off the walls, barely leashed energy.
I disagree. I think his performance in Thomas Crown has actually got a lot of layers to it. And he's a cop. He's been divorced. He's alone. And he's trying to do the best he can. He's about as white a knight as New York is going to have at the time.
See our episode on the Thomas Crown Affair.
By all means. No, I think he actually has a lot of skill that we don't get to see.
The person I thought who was kind of underused in this was Andrea Martin.
Who's she?
She was the costume mistress. I need Schumann's neck size.
Yeah. Yeah. And so they basically they come up with the whole campaign before they even come up with the guy.
They get the guy's name. They don't know anything about him. They know he's in a U.S. special program.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
special.
Yeah, well, they finally, they've got it all. They're going to put him on a plane. They're going to fly him to Washington, make a whole big thing of, look, he's back. I did like the whole, they show him in a sweater that he's unraveled to form Morse code, which is based off of a prisoner of war, I think during the Korean War, who blinked, who was on TV doing that same sort of, I renounce America and I'm a terrible person, but he blinked a message in Morse code through the camera.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. They get him on board, and it turns out it wasn't U.S. Special Programs, it was U.S. Special Prisons. And this guy is doing 12 years because he raped a nun.
Yeah, among other horrible things.
And all these horrible things, and he's on this terrible antipsychotic medication, and this guy... There is a James Thurber story that reminds me of that. I cannot remember the title, but basically it's this guy, he's supposed to be Charles Lindbergh or someone like him.
Oh, yeah, there's a wonderful human
being.
Well,
yeah, this was before, I think it was before it, but he the first guy to fly around the world. And they want to do this, the president, and everyone's going to make him a big hero. And it turns out he's an absolutely horrible human being. He's racist, incredibly misogynistic, foul-mouthed, and they push him out a window.
So he wasn't a Nazi.
No.
So it wasn't exactly like
Wasn't exactly like Lindbergh. No, he was close.
Yeah.
I'm sure there was some. I don't know if there was some commentary in there, but
and who did they get to play?
Woody Harrelson, who, by the way, does a really good job. If you ever saw Natural Born Killers, well, another Oliver Stone subtle masterpiece.
Bam, 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 bam.
Yeah, pretty much. He's really good at playing that barely leashed madness that. I seem like a nice guy, but I could eat you right now.
Yeah, fava beans. Yeah, he does a good job. He's almost over the edge, but not quite. And the thing is that as soon as they show us that it's Woody Harrelson, and I'm like, one of my notes was, there's going to be something wrong. And sure enough, he's on antipsychotics for a really good reason.
Yeah.
And they crash their plane. They're flying him back to bring old shoes so he can be brought back from Europe, ostensibly. Mm-hmm. And they crash the plane partially because he doesn't have enough Cocoa Pebbles or something. And they end up at this gas station in the middle of nowhere, and he sees the gas station owner's daughter. And this,
I thought it was his wife.
I don't know, but she looks awfully young.
He sees a woman and attacks her, and the gas station owner kills him.
Yeah, here's the thing. I have to, real quick. They use rape as humor.
Yeah, that was really uncomfortable.
That I didn't agree with.
Yeah.
We don't see anything, but it doesn't matter because it's obviously, look, isn't it funny he's going to go rape this wood, huh? So I can't say I care much for that.
Honestly, that whole sequence with the plane crash, I think is a weak point in the movie. It really slows everything down, and it goes off in a whole other direction.
Yeah.
I don't think it worked as well. I get why they did it, but I think that's a weak point in the movie.
I also think that the plane crash itself looked very fake.
Oh, it looked incredibly fake. I mean, remember, this is a $15 million budget, most of which clearly went to the cast.
Well, except you said it didn't. They got points.
Not to those two, but you still had a lot of... You had William H. Macy, you had David Mamet, I'm sure needed a chunk of change.
Yeah, and it doesn't...
Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah, well, she was sort of on her way to being Kirsten.
Yeah,
she's literally like right between Interview with the Vampire and Spider-Man.
Yeah, probably.
So I don't think she's worth Dunst money yet. Is that a
Dunst
phrase?
Money?
Dunst money?
It is now.
Yeah, so folks, Hollywood rape isn't funny. Don't make it funny. It can be tragic. It can be.
You want to use it as a plot point? Okay, don't use it as a punchline.
Don't even do that. Don't even make it such like it's a plot point. If you're doing a film that involves what happens because of rape, okay, fine, but not just as a cute little fulcrum to base your plot on. That's not fun. That's cool. Not good. That being said, the film is funny. It is when they say dark comedy. I remember they used to talk about MASH, the original film MASH, being a dark comedy. Oh no! MASH is a sitcom compared to this.
MASH is a feel-good romp compared to this. This is more like Dr. Strangelove as a black comedy.
Yeah, it's partially because of the almost believability about it. And we'll get to whether that's effective or not. But this, just so you know, if you're somebody who's having trouble dealing with, things in the news and politics and the world situation, maybe wait on this.
This will, if your mood is a bit dark because of that, this is not a movie to see to feel better.
Yeah.
Stanley Moss is such a fun character. I love the bit. He keeps wanting to talk to the president just because the president's annoying him.
Yeah.
There's a sequence where they are trying to stage a refugee sequence where Kirsten Dunst is supposed to play a young Albanian woman carrying a kitten. I don't know why the kitten.
Not a dog.
Through a war zone while flames are going off and explosions. And of course, she said they're in a studio and it's in front of a green screen. And eventually they can't find the cat they want, so they decide she's going to carry a bag of Tostitos as a placeholder, and they will digitize in the cat, and the president wants a white cat, where they're saying it should be a calico, and as Stanley says, I hate when they try to get involved. I hate when they try to get involved.
Well, and wasn't that one of the weirdest and most awkward bits of product placement you've ever seen?
I bet that Tostitos did not know what they were signing on for. And that, again, is where you get that menace, when you realize what you're dealing with Connie, because Kirsten Dunst's character, the actress who's playing, it's like, but seriously, is this going to be national? Can I put this on my resume? And he's like, no, you can never put this on your resume. And she just won't let that go because she's an actor and she wants the credit. But she said, well, why can't I? Because if you do, someone's going to come to your house and kill you. And he's saying it with a smile like he's joking, but his voice, and she knows. You see it on her face. She knows he's not kidding.
Well, and here's the weird part. This is the only part that to me is like, is this going to work? Is like, does she now have to stop being an actor because someone's going to recognize her as being part of that footage? And also, they keep showing these commercials with the don't change horses in the mid-race thing, midstream, whatever it is. And there's one point where this old couple, this old woman, this old man, and later on, there's another bit of footage. And there's an old Albanian woman, and I swear it's the same woman.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
She looks, they put a scarf on her head, but I'm like, is nobody going to notice these people? I mean, really?
People see what they expect to see.
I guess. It just seemed like it would be something that you would eventually dig up, The people over at the Washington Post or something would. I mean, Hoffman was involved with that, so.
True.
As we all know, it was Hoffman who outed Nixon, and or was it Redford? I can't remember.
One of those two.
Yeah.
I also we see that while Moss is this kind of comic figure, we also do figure out he's good at what he does.
Yeah.
My favorite moment of that is when he's written a speech, or they've written a speech for the president about Sergeant Schumann.
Right.
And the president doesn't want to do it. He says it's corny.
Yeah.
And Hoffman says, get me 30 secretaries. I'm going to read the speech for them. And we don't see him do it. But when they open the door, all of the women, all the secretaries are crying.
Yeah.
And one of them is kissing his hand. And they're all... and the look on both Connie... Connie is never shaken by anything. He's just sort of like, But Winifred is just like, huh?
Yeah.
And, of course, he then goes and reads it.
And I think it's actually a strength that they don't do the speech.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things that it couldn't live up to.
It couldn't be as moving as it's supposed to be. I mean, this is supposed to be somewhere on, Nothing to Fear But Fear Itself speech.
Another thing that's interesting is that in this film, it's supposed to be Dustin Hoffman playing the producer, and one of the things he says is nobody knows what producers do. Nobody knows.
Oh.
But he ends up really more in a directorial role.
To a degree, yeah.
It's De Niro that's the producer.
Yeah.
And the idea of a producer, to the best of my knowledge, if you're a good one, is you're the guy who finds the people who can
and puts
do the
them together
thing.
and basically is the glue that holds it all together. By the way, he says something that is wrong in this. He says there's never any Oscar for producing. That is not really true. When a picture wins Best Picture, it is the producer who goes up and gets the Oscar.
Sometimes amongst other people.
Sometimes there's a bunch, but the producer but it's true, there is no Best Producing Oscar.
But that's why I think that Connie?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Connie?
I don't know anyone named Conrad who will let themselves be called Connie, except if it's Robert De Niro, you could call him Peaches, and he would still be incredibly intimidating.
Even if you wanted a gravy pipe?
Even if you wanted the gravy pipe, yep. Abigail May.
I think that he is a really good example of somebody where you really can't say exactly what he does, except he knows what the goal is. He's good at finding out what the goal is, and he's really good at finding the right person to fill that role. And he's
really connected. He knows everybody. He knows what they can do. He knows how to use everyone.
And he thinks really well on his feet.
Yeah.
Probably better on his feet than if you gave him time.
Yeah. He's not a planner. He's the guy. That's why he's a fixer. He comes into something that's in the middle of happening and can immediately adjust to it, immediately adapt.
The other cool thing about his role is that it seems to me that all you really got to do is keep him happy, and he doesn't even want that much. My guess is he takes a salary.
Yeah, he takes.
But for him, it's the Dustin Hoffman's character says the same thing. It's like, this is when I'm most alive, when I'm doing my job. And I think that's what De Niro is like. When I'm here, when there's a crisis, and I need to make war so that this president gets off the hook for having slept with a 13-year-old, I can do this. I can get this done. It's going to be he never looks like he's sweating or running out of ideas. Nope. He's always got something, or he has the person that's going to come up with the idea next to him, and he just sort of sits back and is like, he can do this. Yeah.
Even when the CIA, in effect, arrest him and Winifred, she's freaking out.
Yeah.
And he never looks uncomfortable. It doesn't matter that there are armed men around him. It doesn't matter he's been pulled out of his car and put in a Mexican restaurant.
They don't have Tostitos either.
Yeah, and there is never any sense that there is anyone in charge except him.
No. And I bet he's cheap. Like, I bet he says, yeah, give me $1 million. And that's it, or whatever. And he goes off.
That's just what he does.
And you don't have to ever worry about him talking, not only because he wouldn't, but because for him, there'd be no point. Like, all of it for him is so he gets to do this ridiculously high-level adrenaline rushy sort of thing. So there's some depth, I think, in the characters that really isn't on the page, which is why you hire somebody like De Niro.
Yeah. A couple of other small points. I really like, they make up the fictional unit for that Schumann is a member of.
Right.
The 303.
Which is good.
Yeah. And they do things like, okay, they have to have, a beret, and they just, because all the special forces have their own color beret, they decide to make it leopard print.
Well, then you hear, what was his name?
Dennis Rodman. He says, we're going to get Dennis Rodman to dye his hair like a leopard, which he did. It's like, oh, that's why.
Well,
I know, but I'm sitting there going, no member of the U.S. military would ever allow themselves to wear a friggin' leopard skin beret.
I don't know. There's some questionable fashion in armed forces.
And they write a song. They write a ballad of the 303, which is in no way supposed to sound like the ballad of the Green Berets. Not even a little.
You mean good old Barry Sadler, Casca the Eternal Warrior?
Sergeant Barry Sadler, thank you very much.
It's not often when you can drag the Casca the Eternal Warrior into anything.
Yeah. Just thinking of odd moments of humor, the fact that they do use rape as a kind of a humorous point, but they use murder because when the husband or father or whatever goes after Schumann with a shotgun, Dustin Hoffman's looking in, you're like, blam! He opens the door, looks at, wait a minute, he's not dead. Blam! Strike that.
Yeah.
Yes, he is. Okay.
Yeah. And I will say that you get some impression that the other candidate, Coach, is on the ball because he manages to move some pieces and cause some trouble for our protagonists.
He's not. Well, they are the protagonists. They're not heroes, but they are definitely the protagonists.
First, his team ends the war with Albania, and then he's like, okay, produce this Willie Schumann. Where is he?
Where is he?
I don't see any Schumann. And of course, I don't know that he knows what's exactly going on, but he has some hint. Which, in the way, is kind of sad because we as an audience get the idea, we'd rather have him. But, that's the way it goes.
Yeah. There are a couple of interesting little cameos in here that I liked. At one point, when they're singing the song Courage Mom on TV, which was what Schumann had in his sweater in Morse code, Courage Mom. Yeah. That's Merle Haggard.
Oh, yeah. Singing. And he shows up at the end,
too. Just briefly. And this is a throwaway. There's a guy playing a guy named Senator Note, and I only noticed it because he has this very distinctive voice, and this very he sounds a little like Gregory Peck, a little like Walter Cronkite. That is a guy named George Gaines, who is probably best known for playing Commandant Lassard from the Police Academy movies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, no, he was in Tootsie, too.
Yes, he was. He was the doctor. He was the dopey doctor.
Right.
Yep.
Goofy game for dopey doctors.
Yep.
Operation. Yeah, we have some talking points we should probably get to in this film. So what is the conspiracy in this film?
It's creating a distraction from a sex scandal. It's creating a fictional war to distract from a political disaster.
See, I think it's bigger than that. I think the conspiracy in this film is that politics, the country, are actually being run by just about anybody other than the people you see.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, that's the whole idea of the shadow government.
Right, except in this case it's Robert De Niro.
Yes, Robert De Niro and Hollywood. And by the way, there are a lot of people who think that like, oh, Hollywood runs the country. Or I didn't say they were smart people.
Things would be even bigger a mess if Hollywood was running the
Seriously.
government. And the only thing that I don't have against De Niro's character running the government is he doesn't seem to have any agenda of his own. It seems to all be about, I got a problem to solve. I'm going to solve the problem.
He's a fixer. He's not. It's interesting that ties in with what you said about him not being someone who say plans ahead. He doesn't have agendas because he is in the moment. He's like, I have something in front of me to deal with. That's what I do.
Yeah. So the conspiracy, the shadow government, that we are constantly being bamboozled. We are. And that a lot of things that were come to seen as fact may in fact have been wholly fabricated out of, illusionary cloth. Do we believe the conspiracy as depicted?
Yes. I'm sorry. That's one of the things that's disturbing. If anything, this movie is too toned down. I think... nowadays, I don't know how much harder it is because there's so much additional surveillance. Everyone else has cameras. Everyone in Albania would be live tweeting, no war here, lol. But, this absolutely is believable that they can just fictionalize anything they want. And because, of course, there's a war. I saw it on TV.
Well, and also they talk about things that make you think and groan, like when the people were tying a yellow ribbon, like, you know how much money we made on the ribbon? It's like, somebody probably did. And who that probably the government.
Well, not just that. I mean, even after 9/11, and suddenly everyone was buying American flags and everything with an American flag on it. People made a lot of money off of that.
Yeah. Or one of our favorite little oopsies, Y2K, when people were selling survival kits and stuff. Yeah. That was the biggest nothing that ever happened.
That was embarrassing. Well, it was a nothing because a whole lot of programmers worked like maniacs to fix it.
Because a whole bunch of programmers really could not think ahead in the first place.
Yeah.
Nobody will ever need a computer past the year 1999.
We don't need 4 digits for a year. That's just silly.
Yeah. Okay. So I do actually have. I don't know if it's a talking. I guess it's a talking point. It's not a question, but the movie has this aspect to it, to me, that almost felt like it was taking a religion versus either science or atheism viewpoint.
Really?
So think of it this way: De Niro, Hoffman, and his crew are the high priests of this made-up religion. In this case, this presidency.
Okay.
And they are feeding what the populace, what they want the populace to think and do, the rules they want them to follow. And when people come in, like Coach Craig T. Nelson, and they start saying, no, look at this, they're trying to get you to pay attention to quote-unquote facts and stuff, that's shoved out of the way, and they're dealing with the emotional aspects like religions often do, and they're working it in the same way that fake religions often do, dealing with fear, dealing with emotional issues. So to me, there's kind of this interesting science versus emotion content going on.
It's an interesting idea. I would argue it's not necessarily religion. It's just about everything. Politics has been like that for a long time. They know people are not swayed by facts. They're swayed by their emotions.
And aliens.
And aliens, of course. Well, yeah, and of course the orbital mind control lasers.
Hey, are you using that tinfoil?
No, here, you can have some
Thanks.
of that. Yeah, sure.
I feel safer now.
Yeah, good. You got to cover the occipital lobe, especially. That's where they get you.
Why do you know that word?
It was on a website.
Psst, it's him. Bring in the choppers.
I think that's true. I think it's on the one side you have basically the Lords of Illusion.
Yeah.
Which is not just religion. It's any form of power.
Demon dogs.
Yeah. Lords of Illusion.
Demon dogs. Ariel, Uxla, ride.
Thundar the Barbarian references. We have descended into Thundar the Barbarian.
Well, we were talking politics, so where else could we go?
What? Yeah, no, I think it's the case of anyone in power. Anyone who wants to hold on to power, they realize this is the whole thing of perception is reality.
Right.
And that's one of the things that's so damn disturbing about this movie is it's so convincing.
Well, and I think that by appealing directly to emotional knee-jerk reactions, both in the area of fear and the area of
Patriotism?
Patriotism, even like the need to feel a part of something, but also the need to feel positively towards something.
Yeah.
The song that they write, or as you pointed out, Huey Lewis wrote, is unfortunately exactly the kind of thing that would work.
Yeah, it bears some uncomfortable resemblance to We Are the World,
yeah.
but it's just loaded with jingoistic, or hyper-patriotic language. They're literally singing parts from the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution.
And it's all ostensibly marketing.
Yeah,
it's all marketing.
It is all marketing.
And that's where I got this sort of like religious aspect. I'm not pointing my finger at an actual real religion. I might point my finger at other religions, that also deal with fear and stuff like that. But it is a way of getting people to think the way you want by appealing not to any kind of intellectual pursuit, but directly to emotion. But we're probably getting to that point.
Yeah.
By your subtle hand gestures.
Subtle hand gestures of the drow, yep.
The finish.
So, Max.
Yes.
Had you seen this film when it came out?
I've been trying to remember. I don't think I saw it in the theaters.
Okay.
Because I don't remember hearing much about it. I think I did, or I didn't notice. But I remember renting it.
Okay.
I saw it on, at that point, probably DVD.
90 what?
97. Might have been VHS, I don't know. I saw it on a TV screen, okay?
Probably a CRT.
And I've seen it a couple of times since, because it shows up on cable now and then. So, yeah, how about you? Have you seen it?
I'd heard of it, but I'd never seen it. So what did you think at the time?
At the time, I felt very much like I do now, which is, this is uncomfortably believable.
Yeah.
I had no trouble nowadays, the one thing I have a little trouble with, and it's just a computer nerd in me, when they are doing the rendering with Kirsten Dunst and the cat and the background. In 1997, I don't think they could have done it that fast.
No.
They could have definitely done it, but not that quickly. They're just swapping things in and out.
Yep.
And that would have taken a while, even just to render on screen. But other than that, I found this movie both very funny and very frightening.
Yeah, I can see that.
I found it completely believable.
Yeah. I would say the special effects, I did have a note about that. I was like, really? Yeah. Honestly, if they have done anything, it wouldn't have been a bag of Tostitos. It would have been a bag of the same blue color as the background.
Yeah, or it would have been something softer, like a beanbag or flour or something that molds to the arm more.
Yeah, but, and also they would have picked somebody that would never have acted again, I hope, because as soon as she does a part, like when she shows up in Spider-Man, isn't she Albanian? I'm pretty sure she is Albanian.
Well, they could have made a whole thing of, well, look, she came to this country and grew up to be an actor. Also, that was no kitten.
No.
That was an adult cat.
Yeah.
Very small hairs to split here.
Cat hairs.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you? Now, you had not seen it?
No.
This is the first time you've seen it?
First seen it, yep.
What'd you think?
I was not sure what this film was about, and when they do the opening quote about the dog wagging the tail and the tail wagging, I was like, I honestly didn't know this was supposed to have any humorous aspect to it. I was like, is this supposed to be funny? It's one of those jokes, and somebody tells you it's a joke, and you're like, was that the joke? Yeah. Is it? I don't know. And then very soon, we suddenly understand what they're talking about. It's like, oh, okay, I get it. All right, so this is the shadow people that are actually doing the... I thought it was very well acted, and like you said, I think it's very sadly believable. It continues to erode any belief I might have in our government acting the way it's supposed to. It does make you question nearly anything you might read online, which you should.
Yeah.
And your one source for information, whatever that source is. Yeah, again, don't watch this if you're in kind of a bad frame of mind or you've been reading too much news.
What did you think about the very end?
Which part? Oh, the Dustin Hoffman has gone to a nice puppy farm in the north.
This is a big spoiler, but I thought that was one of the more believable parts.
Oh, yeah.
Especially from the character, because at the end, it is finally sinking into Moss. He can never tell anyone.
Yeah, his best job ever.
He says this is the best thing. This is the greatest thing I've ever created, and he refuses. He's like, I gotta tell people.
Well, he's about to call the 800 number.
He's about to call the 800 number, and Connie takes the phone away from him, and doesn't say it. Just looks over at one of the men in dark glasses and just sort of gives him this head gesture.
Yeah.
and we know that's the end of Dustin. He knows Moss is going to get killed,
And he ends up having a heart attack.
That is one of the plane crash. I thought was a weak point. I thought that final sequence was a weak point. I thought they should have stopped with him being put in the car.
I think they could have.
Because then we actually see a scene of like black limos outside Moss's house, and we hear a voiceover from the news saying that he died of a heart attack. We didn't need that.
No,
that
I
was
agree.
spoon-fed. I thought it was much more effective and much more menacing. That's just Connie, just with the gesture of his head, is saying, "Take him out and kill him."
And they could have shown it just being brought into the car and the car driving away.
That would have been it.
That would have been fine. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree.
It still works. I think it still works, but I see why this movie isn't considered a classic.
No.
There are flaws.
Yeah, there are. I wouldn't. Yeah, it's not classic.
It's not perfect. Excuse me. What I mean.
But it was well worth watching, and thankfully it moves right along. It's like an hour and a half, so it's.
But I do second what Mike says. If you're not in a good place in your head right now, if the world political situation is making you sad, this isn't a movie that will make you feel better. This will make you feel much worse.
Yeah, if you're in a bad place, Hoboken, woo, I'm dying. Then maybe you don't watch this film. But Robert De Niro, Dustin Hoffman, and a host of others, some of which will surprise you. But what isn't surprising is the fact that we have another poll question for next week. Max, what is that poll question?
I would like you to consider what low-budget or small-scale movie do you think would have just been ruined if it had been given a blockbuster budget? And you can answer this question by going to our website at www.max. Okay, I know you don't actually have to type in the www. I'm showing my age, but maxmikemovies.com. You used to have to, by cracky.
Max is 35.
And leave a comment. You can also email us for extra bumpy bucks at us@maxmikemovies.com. You can find us on the mediated socialness. Still Musk-free.
Yeah, Ian barely. And that social media, which two accounts would be?
Be Facebook or Twitter. And, at Max Mike Movies. We're still waiting for your thoughts on whether we should join TikTok and perform interpretive dances of each movie each week as our own dance challenge. When I say we, I mean Mike will be performing the interpretive dances.
I have a cabbage.
In a thong.
If you want to see a cabbage in a thong, write us and we'll get a TikTok account and we will do cabbage dancing.
Yes, we will. Cabbage dancing just for you.
Well, at least it's not Morris dancing.
Yeah. Ooh. However, we are not done with this series, which means we've got another conspiracy movie to watch next week. If it won't get you killed, Mike, tell us. Reveal. What movie are we going to watch next week?
Zip. Oh, no.
Oh, my God. Oh, Bumpy. It was you all along.
So we're running out of films here because we're running out of stuff. And partially I sometimes do this. I forgot to look ahead and see which film I was going to pick, so I'm going to have to remember what I think is the film I was going to pick, which is not at all a conspiracy theory. It's just me having forgotten. But I would like to take some little extra time with this film.
Oh.
How much extra time, you may ask?
How much extra time are you going to need?
Oh, I'm going to need days.
Oh, how many days?
Probably, I'd say 3.
3 days.
Yeah,
3 days? What kind of days?
Oh, they're going to be some really long days. I'm going to need a bird.
A bird?
Yeah.
3 days of the parakeet?
No.
3 days of the emu?
Not even 3 days of the tit. No. I would like to take 3 days of the condor. What I'm going to do with them, I don't know. But
3 days of the condor.
Yes, I'm sure it has plenty of days it can.
That's right. That's starring that guy. What's his name?
Redford Roberts,
who had to overcome his crippling hideousness.
Yes, his terrible bad looks.
His awful, ugly, disgusting face.
If you want to see a condor in next week's film, do turn into Max Mike Movies, and you can see 3 days with a condor.
Yeah. This has been a co-production of The Voice of Max and The Movie Wrench.